Maybe. Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Arden, and today we're talking about Runaways number 32. So, this is going to be a fun little discussion. I've never actually really talked in depth about Runaways at all before, but we'll try to make it mostly about this book rather than the entire franchise, I guess. Though I've read through the first run, I guess we'll call it. I guess the first three volumes of Runaways. The initial one by Brian K. Vaughan, and then as it transitioned into Whedon. Uh, that stuff was really fun, and it introduced this really adorable cast of characters, all of whom were children of what amounted to supervillains that had been kind of secretly running and controlling LA all this time. And it's all just kind of a coming of age story for them, coming to terms with this, forming their own identities as they run away from home upon discovering the identity of their parents, and the twists and turns along the way. There's a lot of characters since then that I really like. My favorite is Molly Hayes, especially from the original run. She just was the youngest of the group and very much acted like a little kid, but one with super strength who was also a mutant and has had a ton of fun little moments with the X-Men because of that. Though I haven't checked out much of this volume. I remember there was the Secret Wars tie-in, which I did read a bit of and didn't really get much out of, to be honest. It had been so long since the Runaways kind of went on hiatus between Secret Wars event and the original run that I was a little let down. Then this series has sort of been running in the background for a long time now, and I've checked out issues here and there, but it's been a long time. This is kind of a big turning point issue, and it was advertised as such, so I figured it would be an easy one to sort of pick up on. And it was. Written by Rainbow Rowell, art by Natasha Bustos, and color by D. Kunif. Um, or can, I think I said those all right. They're all really a strong creative team. Matthew Salvaria says, I can't wait for this stream. He's surprised that it had made it this far with the same creative team. So that's a kind of interesting aspect of it, that it's been a pretty stable series in an era where Marvel and DC are constantly rebooting, tinkering with things, switching up creative teams, and all of that stuff. With the little text at the beginning of this book, you know, the standard page where they kind of go over stuff, this book is an easy, like, jumping on point. I didn't feel confused or out of sorts, even though the cast of Runaways has changed significantly, and they're clearly following up on some storyline where they're all dressed up as superheroes or something. It's all good. They're also hanging out with what appears to be a young version of the Gibberim, or whatever they were called, these elder gods that the Pride, who are the parents of the original Runaways and the supervillains, uh, these elder gods controlled the Pride, and the Pride would like make sacrifices for them to them in exchange for power. So Gib is an interesting addition to the team, as he's called. Uh, it's kind of fits in with the overall theme of Runaways. And for example, Victor's still around, and Victor's like Ultron's kid, kind of, and wasn't part of the original story, but is a welcome addition and is able to communicate with machines and kind of is a machine. He's apparently friends with a Doombot. That's a new development, but the Doombot shows up in this issue and has a couple of funny moments where it just sort of moves itself in, and it has its very unique personality. It's been like reprogrammed and stuff, but it reprimands them for some of their recent behavior. And the team kind of is just sort of dealing with recent events. And though I'm not privy to the details of recent events, it's not really important for this issue. It's more of them kind of figuring out where they want to go from here after some pretty upsetting stuff, and each of them being a little stressed out. Molly, for example, is reading up on Krakoa and considering moving over to them because she's not like overly happy. But then the team kind of comes back together and decides Molly should go back to school because she just keeps randomly dropping out of school for extended periods of times as like the Runaways go through different periods of adventures and stuff like that. At one point during the original run, they traveled back in time, and who knows how long they were gone in the relative to the present day, if any time had elapsed at all. But they were also like relocated to New York around then, I believe. They were dealing with the Kingpin and the Punisher at the time, so I think it was something like that. So it's decided Molly's going to school, and it brightens up her mood quite a bit. But Gertrude Yorks, who is got this psychic connection to Old Lace, but in the original run of Runaways, they killed her off along with a bunch of other characters, kind of left and right, after Whedon had left the series, and they didn't seem to really know what to do with the team. And then it just went on hiatus. So it's nice that they've walked back a lot of these steps. I actually know some of the details of all of that, but it's not terribly important for this. The important thing is it's just we've kind of returned a number of key characters to the Runaways. There's some new members, some old members are gone. I miss Zavin, but it's still a nice blend. And Gertrude decides she also wants to go to school. That's actually how this issue opens, with her kind of introducing herself to her class. And I believe Gibb also decides he wants to go and learn more about humans. They point out that he is an elder god and looks very strange, because he does. He looks kind of like a human version of the Gibberim, and says even that is just a form he takes that they would understand, since he is just some sort of larger celestial being, and his true form would leave them deeply disturbed, or I forget how he puts it. It like would destroy their mind or something like that. It's a fun little moment. So he turns himself human. I can't remember what it is. He just says, "You could not bear, yeah, you could not bear my true form, Prideling. Your eyes would bleed, your spine would weep." But I do like how Gibb kind of views the Runaways as a group of like Pride descendants, and that's how he knows them, because that's how the Gibber like his. I don't know if I'm saying that name right, but like that's how the Gibberim identify those humans, basically. It's just a fun little detail. So they all go to school, and meanwhile, I guess Chase looks for a job. But anyways, it's all good fun, and the next issue is just about him joining the football team. So it's a funny little dynamic where like the crux of this is just, oh, like half the team's gonna go to school now, but that's kind of the Runaways for you. It can be anything from them traveling back to like pre World War II era America for weird adventure of them just meeting this girl who can control plants, and them all like, and her joining the team, but she's gone now, I guess. Uh, Or it can be just a storyline about them figuring out what to do on their own now, and like finding out how they're going to get money, or that sort of thing. Or in this case, now they're going to school. So it's also a very beautifully drawn book. There's a lot of bright colors, but in a story with really no action at all, they keep it vivid and visually interesting through all sorts of little things, be it Gib changing form, characters kind of coming and going, and just fun little weird stuff happening along the way. Visual details that make each panel interesting. So let's take these two pages here. We got no dialogue really here. There's one caption right at the end, but otherwise it's just them each kind of doing their own thing. But each one has little flares to it. Like Gib is glowing. Nico wakes up to find her bed empty. Then Chase walks in to just see Victor like buzzing with electricity, because that's just little details about each of them. And the rest of it's all just character work. It is kind of funny. I don't know if this book got delayed because I picked it up pretty recently, but there's advertisements for Empire in here. It just made me laugh. I was like, oh yeah, like that only happened 6 months ago, but it feels like a whole past era of Marvel. So I don't really have much else to say about that. I guess it's just a quiet little stream today, but Yeah, a solid book, start to finish. You really can't go wrong with Runaways. Oh, I did want to talk a little bit about the future of this franchise, though, because it's interesting how like this book is running. If you go on Comixology, there's previews for quite a few issues ahead. It's about to plan out as much as any of them. I don't really think there's any end in sight as long as the creative team wants to keep going, but clearly there's a future ahead of us here as they're enrolling in school again and trying to grow up, I guess, but like in a more normal, grounded way, which feels right for the team after they've been through some crazy antics trying to become superheroes, apparently, with Doc Justice. And it all went horribly wrong. So it makes sense for their characters to kind of want to move in that direction. But as far as it goes, like we're 32 issues in and we're starting this out, and clearly there's more to it. I also think for a series to be chugging along like this, it's clearly found its audience of reliable people buying into it and stuff, and I would happily be one of them. It's a fun book overall. I definitely liked it. Ninja Genko says, "What up? Well, thanks for joining us." I was kind of wrapping up. I don't have much else to say. Oh yeah, sorry. I was gonna say it is interesting though. Like the series is going along. It makes sense to have had a series running while there was a Hulu series for Runaways. But I actually did research because I did the I watched the first season of Runaways, and then I don't really remember hearing anything else about the show. But it did have a full run of like 3 seasons that seemed to kind of basically express what they wanted to express, and it's just interesting to me to think about like, oh, I wonder what the future of this team is, if anything, beyond just comics. Because the show's fine, but I kind of wasn't really interested in continuing past the first season anyways. I'm not really motivated to go check out those other 2 seasons because that first season really just felt like a really watered down version of Brian K. Vaughan's original story. That didn't really leave me excited to see more of that. And I do think there's so many characters and ideas that are kind of unexplored because the show only kind of went so far. It would be great and really interesting to see the Runaways in other adaptations going forward because I find that aspect of comics interesting but also important. You can only do so much with comics, but I only want to read like so many comics in a day. Such so also considering the fact that people I don't think are overly interested in 100 million Batman movies forever. It's a constant complaint that Warner Bros. Keeps going back to Batman, and obviously this is Marvel, not DC. So it would be nice to see more of this. I think the nature of the show, it would be really one thing I was thinking when reading this actually, because the artwork is good and reminds me of Avatar: The Last Airbender. Actually, it has that kind of soft palette. It doesn't really go for that anime look the way Avatar did, but the expressions on characters and the way they're drawn with a lot of vanity, I guess we'll say, reminds me of Avatar. And I wish the creators of that show would create an animated series based out of Runaways. Now, seems unlikely. I think they're working on something else right now. They just finished with Ultron, but that would be cool. Or we get so many Batman video games, it would be cool to get a Runaways video game. And again, I understand there's a difference between Marvel and DC, but it's the same pattern either way. Anyhow, that's just a personal thought. But then again, Runaways are often compared or cross over with Young Avengers, and we just had a Young Avengers show up in that Marvel Avengers game, so it clearly anything's possible. And Molly Hayes has showed up in all kinds of stuff over the years. Her future self was part of that brotherhood that Bendis kept tapping into back when he was writing the X-Men. So the sky's the limit, and if you're looking for new Marvel characters to discover, I would strongly recommend you go right back to the beginning and check out that Brian K. Vaughan comic book series. I wouldn't really recommend the show over it. The books are where the magic is. Or if you have read those books, then pick this up. This is awesome and totally worth your time. So yeah, that's about it for my review today. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you tomorrow, where hopefully we'll have a very special surprise little guest, and that'll be fun. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time here on Comic Island.